Her billionaire husband handed his black wife divorce papers to erase her from their lives. He threw them at her like trash. The mistress smiled, as if victory came easily. 3 years collapsed in 30 seconds. Everything she had built shattered, but she did not cry. No begging. A pen clicked. Ink moved. A line cut across their certainty. He waited for her to plead. Silence answered. Pages stacked. Her breathing stayed steady. Her shoulders lifted. She stepped past him like stepping over a life's obstacle. Let them celebrate their victory. Let them count the spoils. The house, the car, her years of contribution. All just props in a play that ends here. They didn't know they'd already lost their best ace for growth. They never saw the private plans, the separate projects, the numbers kept clean, the signatures they couldn't control. It's a turning point. Want to know what she built while they were sleeping on her? Stay and watch how the quiet plan becomes the loudest revenge. Before her signature touched the divorce papers, there had been a beginning. Beautiful only to someone dreaming about love the way she did. Her name was Zora Cade. She was a standout tech consultant in Charlotte, a career on the rise, fully in charge of her days. A packed schedule. Clients waiting. Clear briefs, clear wins. At a conference in Miami, she met Preston Vale. He ran Vale West Developments and spoke from the stage. He praised her judgment. He promised a future that sounded bright and certain. Being chosen felt safe. The ring came fast. The vows came faster. They moved west to Seattle. Glass towers rose. His world grew loud. Her world grew neat and small. She told herself love could move mountains. She told herself she could rebuild anywhere. Those words sounded brave in the morning and fragile at night. His circle smiled for photos. Their eyes slid past her. Dinner after dinner, she became a detail in his story. She traded late decks for late linens. She told herself it was temporary. She told herself it was partnership. The house looked polished. The days stretched dull. The distance arrived quietly. He stayed later. She tidied rooms and tended their home. She waited for warmth to return like a season delayed, not denied. The waiting became the weather. The cost collected in small, forgettable ways. A promotion paused. A project reassigned. Introductions that shrank her. Preston's wife. Zora Cade repeated a soft refrain. This is teamwork. This will balance. She held that line until it frayed. His mother smiled with winter in it. His father nodded and moved on. Friends treated her like accent decor. Present, polished, replaceable. Words stayed polite. The message did not. She laughed less. She slept less. She spoke less at the table she had set. Mara Wynne, an old friend in public relations, watched her closely. You do not laugh the same, she said. Zora called it stress. She called it a season. She promised herself it would pass. At church, Reverend Lorna Pierce offered a simple blessing. Hold your name, she said. Zora held her breath instead. Seattle glittered and chilled. The house echoed. He texted less and later. She placed hope on the calendar like a sticky note. She moved it forward each week. She told herself that big men carried heavy pressure. She could carry the rest. The math felt noble. It also felt lonely. The unraveling did not shout. It whispered. A voicemail unanswered. A dinner missed. A trip extended by 2 days. Coffee went cold on the counter. Zora Cade stood with the cup and an ache she could not name. She practiced sturdy sentences. Every marriage dips. He is tired. I can wait. Her world narrowed. Meetings fell away. Her inbox dulled. Gift baskets arrived from partners of Vale West. Ribbons. Cards. Names that were not friends. She arranged them on the marble she had chosen. She stared at the arrangement and felt like a guest. Laughter returned to the house, but it was piped in from speakers or borrowed from parties. Not theirs, not together. She cleared space for a spark. She cleared more space. She stood in the space and tried to believe. On a Tuesday, a meeting ended early. The calendar blinked open. She read it as a sign. She took the drive home through gray light and wet streets. She told herself this was how a season turned. She parked. She held the key. She let herself in. Silence met her first. Then a laugh floated down from upstairs. Light. Carefree. A second laugh followed. Low. Familiar. Warm in a way she had not heard in a year. Zora Cade stood by the banister and listened. Hope argued with knowledge. Knowledge won. She climbed in small steps. The carpet softened her feet and sharpened the moment. She reached the bedroom and found them. Preston Vale looked annoyed, not ashamed. Blythe Ashby pulled a sheet and smiled like this was scheduled. It felt less like a mistake and more like a takeover. No shout came, no dramatic scene. Numbness arrived, then a stillness like tempered steel. He said, "We need to talk," as if talk could make the room neutral, as if the bed did not say enough. They moved downstairs together. Perfume trailed behind them. She sat on the couch she had chosen. He poured a drink and did not offer one. The house looked like an ad. It felt like a verdict. He started with numbers, partners, mergers, investors. He said the word future like it had only one door. She folded her hands and let the quiet hold. He spoke first, steady and cold. He called it a plan. He called it a future. The names made it sound clean. Vale West Developments would merge with money from the Ashby family. Blythe Ashby was the bridge. Reginald Ashby III wanted legacy, not noise. This was never real love, he said, as if facts were kinder than lies. He slid a thick envelope across the table. The papers were crisp. Silas Denton, the company lawyer, had prepared everything. Dates, clauses, a path that ended with her outside the door. "Sign, take what you brought in, and leave quietly," he said. The rest belonged to him. The house in Seattle, the cars, the accounts, even the furniture she chose. If she fought, he would make calls. No one would hire her. No one would return a message. The threat sat heavy and obvious. Blythe watched like a judge. Perfume lingered. Crystal clinked. The room treated her as a guest in her own life. She kept her hands still. She kept her breath even. The words landed and slid off. Shame tried to rise. It failed. Something older and stronger took the chair. She opened the envelope. Line after line tilted one way. The house to him. The car to him. The investments to him. She would keep personal things and a single vehicle. It looked final. It felt like a trap disguised as paperwork. He waited for tears to prove the script. No tears came, no questions. She read each page and stored it. Dates, signatures. One glaring intent. Erase her and keep the stage. She nodded once as if agreeing with a weather report. Calm felt like armor she had been polishing without knowing. Blythe crossed her legs and studied her face. "We can all be mature," she said. The word tasted like chalk. He added a soft threat about connections everywhere. The room hummed with power that did not belong to her. She let it hum. Inside, a quiet machine turned. Memories of late nights. The blue glow of a screen. Key strokes counted like prayer. Not fantasy. Not revenge. Work. She placed the papers back in the envelope. She looked at the life they were so eager to own. She understood, fully, that nothing essential was in this room. Before this day, the story bent in secret. 2 years into the marriage, she returned to the thing that made sense. Code. She sat at a corner table in Mama Joe's cafe in Seattle. Coffee warm, laptop open, head down. A project with a simple, stubborn heart took shape. She named it Maven Bridge. The idea was clean. Connect women entrepreneurs, especially women of color, to investors who valued more than optics. She built slowly and then fast. Separate bank accounts, separate legal entity. Contracts with her name alone. Walls around the work that no one else could claim. Mama Joe noticed the hours. She refilled a cup and said nothing. Quiet respect did more than praise. The platform learned to carry weight. Matches increased. Stories filled her inbox. Grit, talent, doors long closed. Every detail stayed off the shared map. No logins on the home network. No paper trail near the house. She protected it because it mattered. She protected it because she remembered who she had been. In those hours, the world felt wide again. The future did not sound borrowed. It sounded like her own voice, steady and clear. 6 months before the signature, a major tech blog found Maven Bridge. One feature became 10 reposts. Sign-ups doubled. Then doubled again. Founders told founders. Investors reached out. Some wanted to buy. Some wanted to partner. She took the calls with a new steadiness. She said yes to diligence and no to control dressed as help. The inbox turned into a current. She wrote it, careful and exact. Terms mattered. Mission mattered more. She set a bar and kept it there. The stories on the platform sharpened her focus. A bakery on the South Side. A biotech grad in Phoenix. A maker's studio in Detroit. Real people, not metrics. At home, nothing changed on the surface. He stayed late and louder. And parties came and went. She kept the silence that kept her safe. Only one person at work knew the scale. June Park at North Star Labs. Smart, candid, patient. They spoke in clean numbers and true aims. A path appeared that did not ask her to disappear. The lift felt earned. It did not show. It did not need to. It was hers. Weeks later, she signed a sale that honored the work. North Star Labs acquired Maven Bridge. June Park made sure the terms protected the mission and the maker. The money moved through trusts and clean accounts. Legal walls held. Nothing touched the life she shared at home. No alerts. No traces on a network he watched. Freedom did not arrive as fireworks. It arrived as room to breathe. She still woke early. She still worked. But worry stepped back. She carried a future that no one else could seize with a pen. She carried a name that would not vanish if someone withdrew love or money. He did not know. He did not ask. He assumed gravity favored him. That was the old math. The new math lived in her files, in her contracts, in the quiet plan that did not require revenge to work. So when the envelope landed on her table, she already stood on different ground. Their threats reached and found air. Their certainty met a wall it could not see. The signature he expected to ruin her would close a door on a room she no longer needed. The plan was already in place. That made the room smaller and quieter. She lifted the pen. She signed where tabs told her to sign. He watched, waiting for a crack. The crack did not come. The other woman shifted, restless. The silence felt like judgment. She finished the last page. She stacked the papers. She said nothing. He asked, "That's it?" The words sounded thin. She stood. She carried herself like the decision had been made long before this table. Upstairs, she chose what mattered. Clothes she wore often. A laptop with the work that had saved her. A small velvet box with her grandmother's jewelry. A folder with clean copies of what belonged to her alone. She left the glitter. She left the furniture she had selected with care. They were props now. She zipped a bag. She looked at the bed and felt nothing. The house in Seattle had been a dream of a life. She walked that dream to the door. He waited by the bar. He poured another drink. The glass tapped the counter. She took her keys. She went to the car. Her hands were steady. Her breath was even. She loaded the trunk and closed it. Inside, a cork popped. Laughter spilled out like a radio set too loud. The other woman's voice rang across the polished rooms. He joined her joy. They believed the story was over. They believed they had secured the set and the spotlight. She started the engine. She did not look back at the windows. Seattle's evening light spread across wet streets. She merged onto the road and let distance do its work. No calls, no texts, no need to explain a choice that had already protected her. At a stoplight, she felt something unclench. It was not triumph. It was space. 3 months from now, The world would learn new names and new facts. For now, she chose quiet. She chose Mama Joe's for a cup that warmed her hands. She chose her small place with the plant in the window. She plugged in the laptop. She checked messages from June Park at North Star Labs. Numbers held steady. Matches grew. The mission kept moving. In that motion, she felt whole. The old house echoed behind her like a stage after the lights cut out. Days formed a pattern that healed. She met with June Park twice a week. North Star Labs provided resources that respected the original aim. No glossy shortcuts, no empty words. Maven Bridge carried more founders each month. The dashboard ticked upward. Stories filled her inbox and asked for nothing but a fair shot. She slept better. She ate better. She wrote terms that guarded the mission. She answered investors who aligned and declined those who did not. The boundary felt clean. The boundary felt earned. Mara Wynne called and listened. Old friendship steadied new days. At church, Reverend Lorna Pierce offered a nod that said enough. Hold your name, and she did. She did not search for updates about the house she left. She did not ask mutuals about him. She let the past cool. In Seattle, rain came and went. She walked the same blocks with new eyes. The city felt less like glass and more like air. The platform crossed a milestone and then another. 50,000 women would come later. For now, there was proof. The work was real. The work was good. The work was hers. Meanwhile, in the Vale West orbit, whispers moved through industry circles. Reginald Ashby III reviewed his positions. The Ashby family liked legacy more than noise. Vale West developments began to look noisy. Contracts drew questions. Margins hid shortcuts. The talk at private lunches turned cool. Hearing grew into action. Reginald pulled capital from joint ventures linked to Vale West. The decision read like strategy. The timing felt like conscience. The market shrugged, then stared. Rhea Cole, the PR fixer at Vale West, launched statements that sounded polished and thin. In her own lane, she kept building. She did not tug the thread. She did not need to. Evelyn Ashby, the wife of Reginald and stepmother to Blythe, had been watching different metrics. She followed Maven Bridge. She followed the founders who had been matched. She attended a small forum under another name. The room told stories. They were not dramatic. They were specific. Payment terms that bled small vendors. Clauses that trapped minority contractors. Errors that never resolved unless someone had a friend. Evelyn listened and took notes. She went home with a new picture of risk. Evelyn Ashby built her first company long before she married into old money. She recognized the smell of corner cutting. She tested what she had heard. She called a woman who ran a drywall crew. She called a maker who lost a contract after pushing back on fees. She called a cafe owner who catered sites and waited months for checks. The pattern held. She brought the names to Reginald. She did not shout. She laid out a ledger of ethics. "Our name is worth more than short gains," she said. He listened. He trusted her read. The decision to step back from Vale West hardened into a stance. Elsewhere, a senior manager at Vale West cracked under soft pressure. Gavin Holt gave cautious answers to a reporter. Nadia Quill stitched those answers to public records. The picture became visible to anyone who wanted to see. She kept her focus. She refined product flows. She wrote an update for the Maven Bridge community. She thanked them for their trust and promised to guard it. She closed the laptop and sat still. Somewhere across Seattle, a different house felt less certain. Somewhere in the Glass District, a man poured a drink with a hand that had begun to shake. Reginald Ashby III made his move. He pulled money from the joint ventures that carried Vale West developments. The decision read like strategy on paper. Inside the house, it felt like a verdict. Meetings turned tense. Emails came back with fewer smiles. Rhea Cole, the PR fixer, drafted lines that tried to steady the ship. She called it portfolio realignment. She called it a pause. The edits showed at the seams. Vendors shifted to caution. Some asked for shorter terms. Some asked for deposits up front. A rumor about delayed payments crossed a table at a private club. It crossed into inboxes by night. The glass office looked the same. The mood did not. At North Star Labs, she kept her eyes on Maven Bridge. June Park sent clean metrics. The platform held its rhythm. Founders matched. Investors signed. The work moved forward even as another world tilted. She did not cheer. She did not gloat. She read the numbers and breathed. Evelyn Ashby stayed quiet but firm. She spoke to Reginald again. Legacy and ethics were not separate. He agreed. The domino had been tipped. It did not need another hand. The next break came without noise. A major client chose a competitor. The note was polite. The timing was not. 2 more followed within a week. Service contracts closed early by mutual consent. Inside Vale. West Developments, calendars emptied like a tide going out. Rhea Cole pushed new statements. The language sounded careful and thin. Gavin Holt felt questions press on his inbox. He answered what he could. He avoided what he could not. A reporter called again. Nadia Quill, steady as a metronome, asked for clarity on change orders and penalty clauses. She paired his careful words with public records. The picture formed on her screen and did not blink. She heard pieces of it from a distance. She did not lean closer. She did not pull away. She kept the Maven Bridge thread in her hands. She returned emails. She checked system health. She trusted quiet work more than loud news. At dinner, the city hummed in a lower key. Friends of friends shifted topics. The name that once glittered felt heavy now. The exits widened. The phone lines stayed busy for all the wrong reasons. When scrutiny reached a certain heat, new eyes arrived. A federal inquiry opened into select Vale West projects. Nothing dramatic. Notices, requests, files moving across desks with dates and stamps. The confidence in the glass district thinned. Meetings got shorter. Voices got sharp. Blythe Ashby vanished from the photo carousels. Her last smile sat under a caption about summer plans. Then nothing. The strategy had lost its shine. The alliance had lost its comfort. The Ashby family stayed quiet, and that quiet spoke. She learned about the inquiry the way most people did. A link in a group chat. A headline that avoided adjectives. She read it once. She closed the tab. She put her hands back on work that held steady. Maven Bridge did not slow. Founders logged in. Matches completed. The counter ticked upward like a heart that would not be rushed. At night, she slept through until morning. No jolts. No cold sweats. A chapter had taken its own weight and collapsed. She had stepped aside in time. That was luck. That was also judgment. The distinction mattered to her now. The calls started after the third headline. Unknown numbers at first. Then the number she knew. It rang. It rang again. Voicemail stacked up and tried to sound calm. He wanted to talk. He wanted context. He wanted a story that made a different kind of sense. She let the calls pass. Silence was the answer she owed both of them. She walked her usual route to the office. The rain pulled back to mist. Mama Jo waved from behind the counter and slid a cup across. "You look lighter," she said. It was not a question. She carried the warmth to her table by the window and opened her laptop. June Park sent a note about a new partnership. It aligned. It would help without bending the core. She wrote back one word. Yes. Then she set up a call with 2 founders who had almost given up last year. They sounded fierce now. Their certainty sharpened hers. The phone lit again. The same name. She let it dim. She had nothing to add to his weather. She had a forecast of her own, and it was clear. She met Mara Wynne at a small place off Pine Street. Booth. Warm light. No music too loud. Mara listened and did not interrupt. "You did not break him," Mara said. "He built a house of drafts. You just walked out before the wind." The line landed and stayed. On Sunday, she sat near the back at church. Reverend Lorna Pierce looked her way during the benediction. "Hold your name," the look said. She felt the weight and the lift of it. She held it. Back home, she wrote a note she never sent. It said, "I release what is not mine. I keep what is." She folded it into a book and let it live there as a promise to herself. The phone buzzed once. She turned it face down. She opened Maven Bridge and watched the live map. Connections formed and pulsed. Stories moved. Work funded. It felt like weather of a different kind. She did not need revenge to feel whole. She needed purpose and clean air. Both were here now. The city outside her window looked the same. She did not. After Sunday, she booked time with Atticus Rowe. His office sat above a narrow street in Seattle. Files lined the walls. The air felt orderly. Atticus read the agreement slowly. He did not rush the pages. He asked 3 questions and waited for her answers. He nodded when the facts matched the law. The divorce terms were solid. The assets she held were separate and clean. Trusts were structured. Contracts were airtight. He pointed to a clause about disputes. He said she owed nothing more. He said there was no hook hidden in the fine print. She felt a release settle in her chest. Not a rush, a steady ease. She thanked him. He reminded her of one thing. Do not engage out of habit. Let the paper do the talking. She agreed. On the sidewalk, the city smelled like rain and coffee. She put her phone on silent. The world could talk to itself. She walked to Mama Joe's for a cup. She opened her laptop and wrote a note to herself. Keep the center. Keep the pace. Keep the name. At North Star Labs, June Park met her in a glass conference room. The board listed 3 markets: Phoenix, Detroit, New Orleans. The plan was lean. The plan was human. Maven Bridge would pilot local cohorts with trusted partners. Not flash. Depth. She presented to a small group and felt her voice return. She did not sell shine. She detailed how matches become launches. She showed what founders needed beyond checks. Space, mentors, patience. The room leaned in. The room understood. Invite letters followed. A panel at a Women in Tech Summit. A keynote at a community bank forum. She said yes to 2 and no to 8. She would not trade focus for applause. June smiled and backed the choice. The map on the wall gained lines that felt earned. At night, she drafted a talk about building without permission. The words were simple. The story stood on its own legs. She closed the laptop and let quiet fill the room. Outside, Seattle lights reflected off wet streets. Inside, a life clicked into place. A week after the summit, she stopped at a downtown cafe. Not Mama Joe's. A place near the waterfront with tall windows and a view of ferries. The line moved slow. She ordered and turned. He stood there. Preston Vale. Thinner. Grayer around the eyes. Surprise flickered. Then a careful smile. He asked if they could sit. She paused and said yes. Curiosity outweighed caution by an inch. They took a small table by the glass. He wrapped his hands around a cup as if for heat. Silence held for a breath. He began. He did not mention love. He talked about filings, vendors, clients who left. He said the word bankruptcy without drama. He said the word alone without asking for pity. His voice carried a hum of disbelief. How fast a name can turn. She listened and watched his face. The polish had peeled back. The room felt too bright for lies. She kept her answers short. She did not offer comfort. She did not offer cruelty. The cup between her hands stayed warm. Her spine stayed straight. He spoke in a low, tired rhythm. Blythe Ashby had left when the headlines thickened. Friends stopped returning calls. A federal inquiry took meetings he could not refuse. Rhea Cole worked the phones and ran out of lines. Gavin Holt had given cautious answers to the press. Nadia Quill had turned those answers into a story the city could not ignore. He asked a question he had practiced. Did you plan this? Did you set it in motion? He wanted a villain with a map. It would make the fall feel clean. It would make the pain feel shaped. She met his eyes. She said nothing for a beat. The past years played like stills. The whiteboard days, the dinners, the cold nights, the envelope on the table, the pen. He leaned forward. He wanted an origin myth to hold in his hands. He wanted to believe someone else built the wind. She let him wait. The cafe hummed with small sounds. Cups, chairs, a fairy horn in the distance. She took one breath and chose the shortest truth. "I didn't do this to you," she said. "I bet on myself instead of you." The words landed without heat. They did not need it. "Everything that happened to you came from your choices. I just stopped being collateral." He sat back like a rope had been cut. His eyes moved to the glass. He nodded once. He spoke about the past with a softness she had not heard. "You were the strategist," he said. "I did not see it until you were gone." The admission hovered. It arrived too late to matter. She finished her coffee. She stood. He reached for a script and found none. "Is there any chance?" he started. She shook her head. No. She wished him care. Not affection, not hate. A neutral mercy that closed the scene. Outside, the air felt clean and cool. She walked toward the crosswalk with steady steps. The city looked the same. She did not. The line inside her held. Purpose over revenge. Voice over noise. She turned the corner and did not look back. She left the cafe and let the street carry her. The conversation replayed in soft flashes. His admission lingered without a place to land. You were the strategist. It was truth with no bridge back. She crossed at the light and felt the cord between them thin to a thread. Then to nothing. At home, she set her bag down and opened a blank page. She wrote 3 lines and stopped. She did not need a victory speech. She needed a clear mind. She brewed tea and stood by the window. Ferries cut the water. The city moved on schedule. Her pulse followed. Later, she answered a message from June Park at North Star Labs. A partner had confirmed a new cohort in Phoenix. Dates, mentors, seed checks. The details grounded her. She sent a simple reply. Proceed. She texted Mara Wynn. Coffee soon. Mara answered with a heart and a time. The day folded into evening. No ache rose, no second-guessing curled under the door. The air in the room felt even. The word that found her was not triumph. It was release. Morning brought rain and a clean sky behind it. She woke without the thud of old habits. Breakfast tasted like food, not fuel. She walked her route past Mama Joe's and waved. Inside, the cafe smelled like cinnamon and newsprint. She sat by the window and opened her laptop. Emails waited. Founders shared updates and small wins. A bakery cleared a loan. A coder hired her first intern. A maker shipped a wholesale order. Each note felt like a stitch pulling the world together. She answered with care and moved to the next. A headline scrolled on the wall TV. Vale West in talks with creditors. She did not flinch. The words were part of another weather system, not hers. She turned the sound down and returned to her work. On the walk back, the city felt brighter at the edges. She had not wished for anyone's suffering. She had wished for her own peace. It had arrived in pieces. It had arrived and stayed. She held the door for a stranger, and the simple act felt like proof. The platform crossed a mark she once wrote on a sticky note. Tens of thousands moving toward their first sales, their first hires, their first lines of credit. She announced the milestone with modest words. The comments filled with faces and cities. Detroit, Phoenix, New Orleans. Names she knew, names she would learn. Nadia Quill requested an interview. The reporter wanted to talk about the engine behind the outcomes. Not hype, not drama. She agreed to meet at a quiet studio. Nadia asked clear questions and listened. They spoke about bias and patience. They spoke about systems and doors. Lila Cade, a younger cousin with a designer's eye, helped shape a data map for the site. Colors pulsed where funding landed. Gray softened where access had been thin. It was not a boast. It was a mirror. She ended the day with a short note to the community. Thank you for trusting us with your work. We are just getting started." She logged off and watched the city turn to evening. A long, slow exhale left her chest and did not return. People asked if she was angry. The question came in email and at events. Sometimes it was cloaked in kindness. Sometimes it was curiosity looking for sparks. She answered the same way. "I don't feel much about him now. He is a chapter, not the book." At church, Reverend Lorna Pierce spoke about release without forgetting. The words fit like a key in a door. She did not rewrite the past to make it pretty. She kept it as a record, a map of turns she would not take again. On a quiet night, she opened the old folder with the divorce papers. She read one page, then closed it. The document no longer hummed. It lay flat and harmless. She placed it back in the drawer and turned to the window. A ferry slipped across the bay. She thought about the women on the platform, steady as tides. She thought about her own name, held and whole. She was not above pain. She had grown around it. That felt like a kind of grace she could live with. She stood on a small stage at a local forum. No lights blinding the room, no music swelling, just chairs, faces, and time. She told the story without polish. A beginning that looked like a dream. A break that felt like ice. A choice to build something that could not be taken with a pen. The lesson was not revenge. It was alignment. Build the thing that holds when someone else drops you. Guard your name. Guard your work. Let the wrong doors close so the right ones show. She watched heads nod. She saw tears for their own stories, not for hers. After, she walked outside into the Seattle night. The air smelled like rain and possibility. Her phone buzzed. A founder in Detroit had closed funding. Another in Phoenix had signed a lease. She typed back, "Proud of you. Keep going." If this story gave you strength, share it with someone who needs a way through. Subscribe if you want more stories where pain turns into purpose and purpose turns into power. Your name is yours. Keep it. Your future is yours. Build it.